प्रेजेंटेड बाय ईबिक्स कैश। हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Aabha Bakaya. Let's take you through the headlines tonight. Markets slip for the third straight day. Sensex plunging 634 points. Nifty barely holds 17,750. IT, Pharma, FMCG worst hit. FMCG Major Hindustan Unilever Q3 profit in line with estimates. Domestic business volume growth at 2%, whereas company flags near-term operating challenges. Asian Paints Q3 profit falls 18%. Misses street estimates. Margins take a hit on higher input costs. And later in the show, we'll get you budget wish lists from Auto Industry and Realty space on what they expect from Nirmala Sitharaman this time around. Benchmark indices plunged for the third consecutive session. Sensex losing the psychological mark of 60,000, while the Nifty ending below 17,800. With Sensex tanking over 1,800 points in just 3 days, investors have lost nearly 6.56 lakh crore rupees in wealth. Boiling oil prices, persistent concern over global inflation, and also likely Fed rate hike acting as the major headwinds for the domestic market to tumble. A worsening pandemic in India and profit booking ahead of union budget contributing to the selling spree today. Barring the Nifty Metal and Realty index, all sectoral indices were in the red today. Pharma being the biggest sectoral loser. Nifty IT was down 1.6%, dragging down, particularly by the likes of Infosys, TCS, HCL Tech. So, is it time then to press the sell button? Is it that the run of the bulls is over on Dalal Street? We have market expert Sharmila Joshi joining us now. Sharmila, take us through what you feel is really brewing here. I touched upon some of the factors at play, of course, but we've just seen consistent selling now for the last few days. Is this expected to continue?
I think, the things have changed. One is that while FIs have been sellers, for the first time we're seeing that domestic investors are also sellers. Both, I think, on the retail level as well as the domestic institutional level, one finds that for the first time we are hearing of net selling rather than buying. So this could this could have something to do with a couple of reasons. I think that people are just taking some money off the table because everybody's sitting on profits, and I think that really makes perfect sense. Because at the end of the day, unless you book profits and you enjoy the run, there is little point in really having profits on paper. And I think a bigger reason probably globally is the fact that somewhere there is a feeling that the first rate cut that you could hike that you could see from the Fed could be as much as 50 bits. So that has sort of unsettled global markets, and that's had its repercussions here. And it's also hit the sentiment of maybe domestic institutional investors. But I think, if you look at the numbers as well as the fact that we have a budget to look forward to, probably next week we should see some recovery.
Now, are we seeing some kind of rotation when it comes to, where the heavy selling is coming in, Sharmila? Because we're starting off, of course, with IT, Pharma, Metals, the only one holding forth today. So is this some kind of rotation we're saying, or is this just purely the markets, taking some of the froth off the table?
I think it is rotational, because I think that the sectors which have last gone up in the rally, they are the first that are seeing the selling coming in. So in that sense, it's rotational, but it's also, in a sense, a lot of these mid caps that have had really fabulous returns over this last year, people are just selling them and booking profit there, which, as I said, I think makes perfect sense. If you have a stock that's given you 300% returns, etc., I think it's time to shave off a little and probably re-look at some other stocks which could give you a similar return. Because a stock that's given you 300% return, let's face it, I mean, unless you see it giving you another 300% return, it might just make better sense to book profits there partially and, invest somewhere else. So I personally don't think that there is too much cause for concern, but I think that the only concern one should have, and if you're entering the market now, one is that traders need to be careful, because this has become a slightly volatile market in that sense. And I think that for me, the strategy that has worked is to try and buy stocks where I think earnings are where not think, but where earnings are good, and where I think that going forward, they can keep the momentum of earnings going in a sort of a tough environment. So whether it's a mid cap, preferably looking at good mid caps, or whether it is large caps, go with stocks where earnings are good.
Thank you, Sharmila, for joining us with that. Now, India's largest fast-moving consumer goods company, HUL, Hindustan Unilever, reported a 16.8% rise in net profit to 2,243 crore rupees for the third quarter, which was in line with analyst expectations. The company's underlying volume growth in the quarter stood at 2%, as against analyst estimate of 2.3%. HUL has gained market share in both urban and rural areas as the country emerged from coronavirus-related lockdowns. However, the company has said that in the near term, operating environment will continue to remain challenging. Asian Paints, meanwhile, reported a mixed set of numbers. Inflationary trends in raw material prices have impacted margins in Q3. The company's net profit tanked 18% year-on-year. This even as the company reported a 25.6% rise in revenues. The domestic decorative business registered a strong double-digit growth of 18%. As per the management, price increases taken in November and December have helped to improve margins on a sequential basis. The auto coatings business was also impacted by the challenges facing the auto sector. With less than 2 weeks to go before Nirmala Sitharaman presents the Budget 2022 in Parliament on Feb 1st, there are expectations, anxiety and speculations running rife. The auto industry, being one of the most impacted due to muted demand and shortage of semiconductor, expects steps in the budget that would act as breathers for the entire industry ecosystem. Let's head across to my colleague Sakshi Batra to understand what the industry's wish list is from the Finance Minister this time round.
That's right, Aabha. The auto sector, which contributes to almost half of India's industrial GDP, is reeling under severe pressure because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it has been struggling with the rising commodity prices, the muted demand and the shortage of semiconductors for over 6 months to a year now. The industry is hoping the union budget to actually bring in some kind of a healing touch for the sector. The industry is expecting some sort of certainty in the tax and the regulatory policies. The automobile dealers body, FADA, has also urged the government this time around to reduce the GST rates on two-wheelers to 18% in order to generate demand, which has been reeling under some pressure. Auto components industries also seeks a uniform GST rate of 18% on all the auto components. Now, for the electric vehicle segment, which has a promising outlook, a reduction in GST would also make these vehicles more affordable for consumers. Now, an increased outlay and incentivization also towards the renewable resources will also give an impetus to the e-mobility system. The auto sector also expects the government to unveil some measures which are aimed at drawing more investment towards the sector in, say, building capacities for semiconductors and the critical components for the entire sector. It also expects incentives for the hydrogen and fuel cell development to increase exports of these auto components and to increase RODTEP, which is the remission of duties and taxes on export products, benefits from the current 1% to aid exports further. Now, the past year has witnessed multiple initiatives from the government, like PLI for electric vehicles or the semiconductors, also the vehicle scrappage policy, which is a big step, and the sector will look for announcements on further push on all of these to rejuvenate demand and also resolve the supply chain disruptions. Back to you.
Thanks, Sakshi. Now, it's a Business Today TV exclusive. The upcoming general budget is likely to provide several SOPs for the housing sector, including 15 to 20% higher fiscal support and extensions for flagship schemes like the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. The scheme for tax deductions for affordable housing is also likely to be extended. The Amrut scheme may get higher budgetary allocation as well. And with just 10 days to go for the union budget, we find out what the crypto industry wants from the finance minister. Will the finance minister reveal new regulations for the crypto industry? Will there be announcements on taxes on crypto trades? Sumit Gupta, CEO of CoinDCX, joining us now. Sumit, tell us, what is on the wish list for the industry this time around?
So, Aabha, as you rightly mentioned, in the last year, 2021, the entire market has grown multifold, right? We have seen unicorns coming out of the country. So much development happened in this space itself. A lot more clarity came, a lot more discussions happened. So I expect that to continue, and I expect the market to grow even a lot more in this year 2022. Though I feel that there's a lot more work that needs to be done in terms of coming up with the right regulatory framework, but I feel that one thing which is very easy and which I also expect from the budget is clarity around crypto taxation, right? And also, how do you report these transactions? Because there's a lot of confusion around this. Like a lot of people reaches out that, okay, how do I pay taxes on crypto? And that's also keeping a lot of investors on the fences. So I expect that to be discussed or announced in some capacity in the budget. We feel that in the union budget there will be clarity around what taxes to pay if you are a long-term investor versus if you're a short-term investor. If you are actively trading in crypto, how do you treat that income? Should it it will be put under business income, right? And then a lot of people currently pay taxes in crypto based on the holding period, long-term capital gain, short-term capital gain. Some people use crypto in their commercial transactions, so how that should be treated. If you are doing transaction with, let's say, a foreign party, right, that should come under LRS, and reported to RBI. So all of that clarity is still not there on paper by the government. So I expect that clarity to come in the budget session, specifically on the treatment of crypto related to taxation.
Sumit Gupta, thanks so much for joining us and sharing with us some of those critical expectations for the crypto industry this time around. It's the only sentiment tracker with total credibility. India Today's Mood of the Nation is the most definitive opinion poll. And as Omicron cases surge, India Today's Mood of the Nation tracks the fallout of the pandemic and its impact on the economy. Here are the findings.
The biggest issue that people are dealing with is the pandemic. We're in the middle of the Omicron wave, and do voters think that the central government has done enough to deal with COVID? What we'll do is we'll compare and contrast the numbers in all the poll-bound states at one glance so that you can get a sense of how the mood in the states differ on this question. If you look at the number of people who think in Uttar Pradesh that the government has done enough to deal with the economic fallout of COVID, 71% are saying yes, only 23% are saying no. That means that Uttar Pradesh thinks the government's done really well in dealing with COVID. Punjab is 42% yes, 46% saying no. So they're far more unhappy with the government's handling of the economic fallout of COVID. Uttarakhand is 53% saying yes, 37% saying no. Goa is 50% saying yes. They're satisfied with what the government has done in the economic fallout of COVID, 43% saying no. Manipur is 56% saying yes, 29% saying no. Now, what this suggests essentially is that Uttar Pradesh is in a stratosphere of its own, and this, when you contrast with images, say, of the floating bodies in the Ganga, on the banks of the Ganga, you'd imagine that people would be unhappy with the performance of the central government on dealing with COVID, but that is not the case. The data brings that out strong, that in Uttar Pradesh, people actually think that the government has handled the economic situation very well. How did COVID impact your economic status? Now, this is a question where people typically would not mislead voters, because you're being asked, are you better off? Are you worse off? How are you in comparison to the past? So let's take you through what the mood in the poll-bound states is. In Uttar Pradesh, 16% say their income has improved. 64% say their income has decreased. No change is 14%. In Punjab, only 7%. So less than half the number of people in Uttar Pradesh who said their income has improved. Only 7% say their income has increased in Punjab. 74% are saying their income has gone down, which is 10% more than in UP, and 12% say it hasn't changed. In Uttarakhand, 11% say their income is improved, which is less than UP but more than Punjab. 63% say their income has come down, and 16% say there's been no change. In Goa, only 9% say their income has gone up. 82% say their income has gone down, which is more than the other 4 states that I read out so far. And in Manipur, because of smaller sample, we didn't pick up anybody saying their income had improved. 85% saying their income had come down.
Tata Motors has unveiled the CNG variants of the Tiago and Tigor models at a starting price of 6.09 lakh rupees and 7.69 lakh rupees respectively. Shailesh Chandra, Managing Director, said the company is trying to make CNG vehicles an aspirational choice. Listen in to a slice of his exclusive conversation with BTTV's Chetan Bhutani.
Tell us about how did you think of the CNG variants, and suddenly are you planning to to venture into CNG versions, a lot of it now?
So thanks, Chetan, and thanks for having me on this show. The thought of CNG goes to the trend that we have been observing in the last few years, especially last 2 years, where it has been seeing some very steep increases in as far as growth rates are concerned. And this has been on the back of rising petrol fuel prices, and therefore in segments like hatches and uh, sedans, where customers are very particular about running costs and all, we are seeing that preference for CNG is increasing. Also, in these segments, the diesel models had got discontinued because of BS6, where it became less viable. And also, we are seeing that with as the CNG stations are increasing across the country, there is a traction which is clearly being seen in CNG models. And therefore, we selected these two models as the first two models to be launched in the CNG as a CNG variant, and with slightly different philosophy of making the CNG more aspirational uh, as compared to a compromise choice, which was what we were seeing. And when we surveyed the market, it was coming out very clearly that customers do feel concerned about the performance, which lacks a bit in CNG model. There's always a worry around the safety part, and they have very compromised choices available with lesser features and all. So we took these into consideration, and these became the differentiating factor for us. And that is how we have gone ahead with launching the CNG models. As far as further penetration of CNG variants in our portfolio is concerned, I think we are carefully watching each segment, because each segment and their consumers have very different preferences. And therefore, we'll be down selecting few other segments where it would make sense, and where there will be enough customers to go for CNG variants, and then progressively launch.
Sure. So one more thing I remember quickly, the government had recently announced that they would now bring up six airbags. The draft notification is out. How are you studying into that, and do you think there would be a potential price hike if such a development happens?
Price hike, I think, will be imminent because there is going to be an additional cost, but we are in the process of evaluation, not only the cost, but also the feasibility of timelines and all that we are assessing. So it will be premature for me to comment before we have the results are coming out of the evaluation that we are doing.
Now, after the tech supremo, Elon Musk flagged that his company is working through a lot of challenges to launch its products in India, we spoke to MOS Electronics IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, to understand the centre's stance on the issue. In an exclusive to BTTV, he urged Musk to explore India as a partner. Listen in.
I will speak broadly on the EV space. I believe, given where we are on electronics and our ambitions and our goals for semiconductors, as you know, EV is a very semiconductor and electronics and tech intensive product and platform. I think India and Indian entrepreneurs, there are so many, I've met many of them, very, very, very bright startups that are in the EV space, in the battery space, in the energy space, in the AI space. So I think this is an area that India will take a lead in, and India is going to be, playing a bigger role for in terms of the global evolution of the EV segment. Apart from that, I don't want to speak to the controversy or the issues with Tesla. We respect Elon Musk everybody does. Anybody who has a slightest hint or connection to the tech space has the greatest respect and regard for him. But India is totally committed to an Atmanirbhar Bharat approach towards electronics and technology. We don't want just things to be imported. If it can be manufactured, it can be designed, and an ecosystem for that can be built in India. So I would encourage Tesla and Elon Musk to explore India as a partner in not just selling a platform, but also in design, development, and manufacturing. that state-of-the-art EV platform.
Wipro has been named among the top employers in Europe. The IT major has been placed in the 5th rank out of over 1,800 companies from across the world by Top Employers Institute. Bharti Airtel, OneWeb and Hughes have signed a strategic 6-year deal to bring low Earth orbit connectivity services in India. This announcement comes after OneWeb launched 60% of its LEO satellite fleet to deliver high-speed, low-latency connectivity globally. HCL Tech announces expansion of its partnership with optical solutions major Osram. Companies will digitize their key business processes and drive enterprise resource planning and CRM systems standardization across the organization. Max Healthcare Institute announces entry into a long-term service agreement with Muthoot Hospitals. The medical institutions will operate and manage a 300-bed hospital constructed and developed at Dwarka, New Delhi. Toyota unveils its first ever lifestyle pickup truck in India. The Japanese auto giant's pickup truck will be launched in India in March. It's likely to compete with the likes of Isuzu V-Cross in the same class. And that's all we have time for on the show today. Thanks for watching.